Oh, what do you see? What do you see? All right, welcome back to our series on Pun 2 multiplayer in Unity and with Playmaker. Last time we did some basic setup where we set up our Pun connection with an FSM, and we also created a canvas to give us some debug feedback to make sure that whenever we are testing that we're connecting to the right regions and rooms and we can see what our room name is and all that jazz. So let's go ahead and fix a couple things. If you remember right, whenever we clicked play, our room name is some crazy nonsense. All right, so that's not going to be very useful for us. So how about we figure out a way to create a room name? And that's straightforward enough. So on room creation, let's get our room name. But actually, we should set our room name. So what we can do first is we can go double click, and we're going to, we're going to go back to create a room, and we're going to give it a name. So we're on the create a room one now, and we're going to give it a name. So there is no name right now, but we can't just manually input something here. We need to generate some random number to give the room. So on your UI, when our player's creating a room, you can of course have a UI interface and say create a room name, and they can create their own manual room name. But for now, what we could do is we could random int and move to top, and we can just get a random number between let's say 100 and 500. Let's do even more. Let's do random number between 100 and 900, and we're going to store this as our random room int. Sure, you can include the max. And then what we will do is we're going to build a string. And we need to move this up. And let's go ahead and maximize this to make everything easier to see. All right, so we're going to build a string. So we only need 2 parts. And what I'm going to do is I just want it to be called room. And I'm not going to put a space or anything. I'm just going to have element2 then be the random int. So convert random room int. And let's store this as room name. It's kind of weird because we're using this variable down here to actually get the room name, but that's okay because they're separate. It's okay if it gets replaced. It should hopefully end up being the same name anyways. So room name, and then now we need, when we create the room, we want to make the room called room name. All right. So now if we play, we should then get a room name that's not bonkers. Look, room 716. All right. So now we have some great information here. We're in the US region. We created the room. We didn't join it. We have a room name. My actor number is 1, and there's 1 player in this room, and the state that we're in is post labels. All right. So good to go. So now let's actually, what are we going to do? We're going to spawn some players now. Really, I would probably wait to spawn my player on this one down here, but we'll come back to that. But we need to have a world. So I'm going to get rid of I'm going to switch out of my 2D mode, and let's go ahead and turn the skybox back on. And first off, I want a prettier skybox. So there's this free asset in the asset store that I think I used in previous tutorials. It's called the Gridbox Prototype. And resources, is it in textures? Prototype. What are these called? Okay, those are all the, I don't want that. I think, here we go. Materials, skybox. And I think I'm going to go with this blue skybox and just drop it in the scene there. It's pretty. All right, and so now we need a floor. Okay, anytime you're doing a demo prototype, you're going to have some type of floor, right? So let's just come over here, and we're going to do a 3D object. A lot of people start with planes. I kind of like going with a cube because you're going to get a better. It's already going to have a box collider, and like the planes have mesh colliders, and that if you're using physics and rigid bodies and stuff like that, it's just I like to have a cube. Give it some thickness, and it's more likely to work. We're going to put it at 0, 0, 0. And let's go ahead and focus on the cube by pressing F. Okay, I don't really care that it's super thick. We're just going to keep that super thick. And we're going to call this floor cube. But let's make it a good size. I don't want it to be any taller. We'll just keep it like that. And let's just do 100 by 100. Okay, it's pretty big. And it's pretty ugly. So what we're going to do, because it's more fun, is have a nice resources, materials, prototype grid. Let's get us a nice floor. Let's go with green. So I'm going to drop this on my cube. Now what's nice about this grid is it's a grid, so it kind of gives you distance, but because our cube is scaled up, okay, so each one of these squares is supposed to be 1 by 1, we need to go to our material and we need to tile it. So we should be tiling 100 by 100 because that's how much we scaled our mesh. So if we go 100, 100, nothing happened. What the heck? Oh, I put it in the wrong place. That's the secondary map. Here we go. Tiling 100 by 100. And you can see this is a huge box, but we move in and we have a pretty cool grid. All right. Another thing that you want to do is have some other objects just so you can like kind of detect movement and see what's happening, especially if you're doing like first person. Third person, it's not so bad because you can actually see your player moving. So let's create just some other objects. So let's just do another cube. Let's zero it out. And let's raise it up 0.5. Oh, I need to do it up 1, really? Apparently I need to do it up 1. Yeah, all right, so 1, raise it up 1. And let's just give it a yellow. And my tiling is fine, but I want it to be taller. So let's go up 5. And which means we need to move it up 5. Apparently not. 4? No? 3? Okay. Not sure why 3, but whatever. So we got this huge column here, but I want to tile my grid a little bit. So to make my grid look a little bit better, let's go 5. Nope, X should still be 1. Y needs to be 5. And I think we're good there. Yeah, it looks better. All right, and so then what we can do is we can create an empty, and this we'll put at 0, 0, 0. Let's take this cube, we'll call it tower, and we're just going to move it on the Z. I don't know, let's go 10. Okay, and then so let's duplicate that, put it in this object, and I'm going to rotate this object on the Y. What's it look like? 15. Let's go 45. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, and then I will duplicate it, bring it out, and then I will rotate it 45. Oh, not that. I want to rotate my rotating object here by another 45, so plus 45. And then let's duplicate it, pull it out. All right, there we go. So I have my towers all created, and I put them into parent object towers. So I got something to walk around in. All right. So now, none of that matters for multiplayer. That was just setting up some stuff to see so you can see what's happening. So now we need a player. So I'm going to create a 3D object, and we're going to make it a capsule. Okay, because a capsule is just pretty much your go-to. I'm going to hit F to focus in on that guy. What's he doing down there? Let's zero him out. Let's press F to focus in on that guy again. There he is. My computer's freezing up. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, it's freezing up a little bit. All right, but let's bring our capsule up a bit. I mean, I could probably hold down V and just drop it. Nope, because that's looking for a vertex, not a face. Where's my snapping controls? I forget how I can change it to snap to a face. I'm not worried about it. It's good to keep it slightly above because that way it doesn't fall through. So I'm actually going to do it at like, just a little lower. Okay, because it's good to make sure it doesn't intersect the floor, because if it does, it could just fall through the floor at start. All right, so we're going to do that. Let's make our player look like something. So let's drop that on the capsule. And we need a forward to know what direction he's facing. So let's to our player, which really we probably want to create an empty player. Let's create an empty player. I'll call this empty player. Okay, zero it out. Okay, that way it's there. And then I'm going to add a component, and I'm going to add a character controller. But now I want to offset my character controller because it's always centered. So my player is at 0, 0, 0. Oh no, 0, 0, 0 doesn't work because there's a cube, and the cube is thicker. So my 0, 0, 0 is actually halfway into the cube. So let's take our floor cube and our towers. And what happens if I just go minus 0.5? I still think that my empty player, yes, right on the surface. Nice. All right, but let's still go ahead and just raise him like 0.2. 0.1's fine. All right, so he's raised at 0.1, and then we want our center to probably be 0.51. No? 0.6? 1? 0.1. No, just 1. Yes, yeah, 1 should be right. Yep, because so now our character controller is right now on our empty player. And now let's put our player capsule so we have something to look at on the empty player, and then let's zero it out. No, let's do it at 1. And that should match our yes. Okay, there we go. We match. But we like to know where we're looking. So if I'm on my empty player, click on this guy. Okay, both our local and our global. So we're pointing at this. That's our forward. So on our player capsule, we'll also add a face. So make a cube. We're going to call this our face. And let's make it this color. Oh, my mouse is just being so wonky right now. Fine, we'll drag you up here. Come on, mouse. Undo. 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 I just don't. Okay, as you can see, I am mid-editing this, just so I can see where I left off at, because I don't need my earbuds, because my computer I was editing on, or was originally doing this on, was getting really mad at me. I cut out some of it from the video already, just the mouse wasn't working right. So I decided to do this on my VR-ready laptop, and I'm outside. This is allowing me to actually get this done while still watching my kids and my dogs. And amazingly, the noise suppressor that's built into OBS Studio is pretty good. I might need to do some adjustments in post later on, but here we are in outside, and let's try to finish up this project, shall we? All right, so what we were doing is we were in the middle of setting up a third-person character controller. And I was actually having some issues getting it to work because I was having some major brain farts while trying to multitask so many different projects. But anyways, we have our third-person controller set up here. So if you remember, here in the scene, we have, can't remember if this is how I set it up, but we have an empty player object. And inside the empty player object is the mesh. So the mesh is my actual cylinder. And then inside that is the cube. All right, so the cube doesn't have any colliders on it. The mesh doesn't have any colliders on it. We just have the character controller that has its own built-in collider right now. And this is not at 0, This is at, it's a little bit higher off the ground. We turn gizmos on, switch over to this. You can see, it's still midway through the character. I had to offset, no, I didn't have to offset the character controller. This is where it's centered at. If you hear my kids screaming in the background, they're okay. They're just on the trampoline. All right, so we have an FSM on the player object. It's the movement FSM. I can't speak. It's my movement FSM, and apparently I don't have the Playmaker editor dashboard down here, so I'm just gonna click edit on my FSM. Hope this microphone's picking me up okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and dock this so I don't forget it. Down here. All right, so all I have is just the movement FSM. And if we maximize it, what do we got going on here? So I'm getting axis vector. That's just a really easy way to get what you need to move your character with a character controller. So it gets the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. So really, if I plugged in a USB controller, this would work as well. So here we have our controller simple move. And the reason I'm using simple move is so if you looked at my third person character controller video before I started this pun series, you'll see that I used controller move so that we could still jump. And we kind of use like artificial gravity with that. But with this, we're not planning on doing any jumping just to test this out. So controller simple move is just fine. So it's ignoring the vertical axis. And then what I'm doing is I'm having a smooth look at direction so that the mesh, so I have my empty character controller. This is what the FSM's on that controller right now. It doesn't have anything visual on it. It's just empty. It's the character controller. It's got the collider. And as a child of that, we have our cylinder and we have our cylinder's face, our character. That's our mesh. So what we're having it do is it is going to look in the direction that we're moving so that it just looks right. Otherwise, you're walking backwards and whatnot. Also, I went ahead and increased the speed. By default, I think it's at 5. I'm going to increase it all the way up to 15 on the speed that it's going to look at. And it's never going to finish because everything we're doing is every frame. All right, so we're going to unmaximize this, and you'll see what I have so far. Okay, so here's my little guy. So he's facing up at the top here. I'm just going to use WASD to move around. Okay, look, he's looking to the right now. He's looking to the left and down and up. We can go diagonal that way. We can go diagonal this way. I can use my arrow keys because we're using Unity input system. So that's pretty dang good. We got a nice character controller. You'll notice that none of my pun stuff is doing anything because what I did is I disabled our Playmaker Photon proxy that also has our pun connection FSM on it. So I don't have to worry about it connecting to the server every single time while I was just testing out my third-person character controller. So now that we actually have a third-person character controller, how can we now get networked players to be able to use it? So it's simple. We just have to what's called instantiate it, but we need to make it a prefab first. So in other projects and in watching other tutorials, you may have noticed it's a good idea to have a prefabs folder in your assets, or anything that's in your assets is considered a prefab anyways. But for pun, you must have anything that's going to be instantiated over the network, meaning you're going to create something that's not part of the scene that's going to be owned by one of the players. And it needs to be in the resources folder. So right now I have orange player and purple player from an old project. Actually, it's the same project, but when I was messing around with it before. This is like 6 months ago. But we're now going to take, let's call this tutorial player. Tutorial player. Okay, and so all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to drop it into my resources folder. And now I'm going to delete it from the scene. So now I'm going to come back up here and re-enable my Playmaker Photon proxy. And let's just hit play so we can remember where we left off on that. All right, so our states are being posted up here. And once everything was said and done, we now know the region we're in, if we created the room or we joined the room. Our room name didn't save. So in the video so far, you actually saw where I did the room name, but that part of the project crashed. So I'm going to pause the video while I re-add that room name generation. All right, so I've done that now. let's just hit play, make sure everything's working. All right, cool. So we are in the US region. We created the room. We have room name 745. We have my actor number is 1. We have 1 player in the room. And the state that we're done on is post labels. All right, but that's not all we want to do once we create the room. We need a player to control. Now I just remembered something that I forgot to actually put on our player. So let's go ahead and go back to the player now. That way I don't have to undo it later, because I always hate doing that, seeing that in tutorials. So we're just going to go fix our player now. In the project, we're going to open up our tutorial player. Okay, so now we're inside the prefab. It's still showing our game here, but if I go to scene, you can see that we're not actually in the scene. We're in this special little prefab area to where we can edit this guy. I wonder if I move my mic over here. My mic might do better right there. All right, so what happens if we leave this player this way is I create the room and I create this player. I will now be able to control this player. But when somebody else enters the room, and creates the player, I will also be able to control that player. So what we need to do is we need to tell the game, is this my player or not? I got interrupted. Where were we? So, right. So we need to make sure that we know if this is our player before we try to move it. So I'm just going to add a new state. And we just need to know in the state, is this mine? And hey, why not? Since we're asking a question, let's make it yellow. I don't know. All right, so then is mine. It's as simple as that. Okay, so it's just as simple as adding this action. So is this game object, is it mine? This is going to store bools that true or false it is, true or false it's not. We want is mine event. So yes, it is mine. And then we want this to then go to the move state. And so now we want this to be our start state. And I don't know, we'll move this to here. And then is mine, so move. All right, we don't need it to tell it to do anything that if it's not mine. All right, so is it mine? If it is mine, then we're going to move this thing. This also might be worthwhile for if it is yours to maybe tag it. So we could do that too, because a lot of times you need to tag your player. So now what we'll do is we'll just go tag. So we're going to set the tag on the owner. But see, if we do that, we'd want to add one more state here, because I don't think I want to tag it. I mean, it probably isn't going to hurt your performance that much, but I don't want to tag it every single frame. So add transition, finished. I don't know really, it might not do it every frame. But I'm still going to do it this way. Set tag, copy. Ooh, we can even cut, Control X, paste. All right, so this owner, we're going to tag it as the player. That way, if we ever are looking for the player, we'll find ourselves. Or our player, anyways. Why is this unhappy? So this is giving us a reminder that, hey, if you're going to network this, we need to know that you're going to network this. So we have to add some Photon components to this player. Anything that you need to know about over the network, you need to have some type of Photon component. All right, this was quite the experiment, me trying to record this outside while still helping everybody. All right, by everybody I mean my dogs and my kids. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add that Photon view component. So we're going to go Photon view. While we're here, let's take a look at these other components. We have Photon animator view, rigid body view, transform view, and then just regular Photon view, and also playmaker Photon view. Why can't I remember if I need playmaker Photon view? I think we're going to add it just to be safe. If you're going to sync variables that are in your FSMs over the network, you definitely need playmaker Photon view. If you're not syncing any variables over the network, you probably don't need it, but it's not going to hurt to have it, I don't feel like. We're not going to cover it in this tutorial, but what Photon Animator View does is it makes it really easy for when you have animated characters or other things
for if you trigger an animation, if one of the players triggers an animation and it like changes their character or they're just running, all the other players will see it. But one thing that's going to make a lot of this easy for us is Photon Transform View. Now, if I add this, I think it'll also add the Photon View for us automatically. So there's the Photon Transform View, and it did not. So let's go add component, Photon View, and there we go. So Photon View is also already seeing that, hey, this tutorial player has a Photon Transform View on it. And so what this is going to do for us is, if you've watched any other pun tutorials that are more than 2 years old, they were really designed more around pun 1. And you had to do some really clever stuff where in this move state, I would have had to get my position and save the position in an FSM that was just set up to sync my position and rotation. But Photon made this a lot easier by creating this Photon Transform View state. And by default, it's only doing position and rotation. You could do scale too if you wanted to, but you really don't usually change the scale of your character, so you're probably going to be fine without it. So just by doing this, this should now be everything we need, except for actually instantiating the character in game. Our players should now be good to go. So we can move it, but we're only moving it if it's ours. And all the other players will see when we move it, thanks to this. And just to be safe, you know what, just for fun, I'm not going to put the Playmaker Photon View on this because I really don't think I need it. All right, my girls are now on the deck with me. So there might be a little bit more background noise. I apologize. See? All right, so now we need to instantiate this, which if you've ever created an object, it's in a game. This is just like that. We're creating an object, but we're creating it over the network. So we're instantiating it. So here in our Pun Connection FSM, we need to instantiate it if we are creating the room or if we're joining the room. So here we're creating the room, and let's do it in the post labels state. So let's maximize. And here in the post labels state, we're getting the player properties. So here we're going to come in here and we're going to instantiate. There we go. Pun instantiate. Simple as this. So what we're going to do is we are going to instantiate our tutorial. Oh, we got to go to the assets tab. Whoa. Got to go to the assets tab. There is tutorial player. And we can put a spawn point here. Game object requires... Oh! Wait. Playmaker 2, Playmaker Photon Game Object Proxy Component. Okay, well, it knows it's missing something, so we're just going to go ahead and add it. And what position are we going to put it at? I'm not going to worry about this right now. What you could do is you could just generate a random position. Just get random vector 3. I think there's an action that'll let you do minimum maximums. And then you can just position there, but we'll just let everybody spawn at 0, 0 or wherever. And it might be useful to store this as my player, but we'll also tag it as player once we instantiate it, because that's built into the character itself. So really all we have to do now is just copy the same action and come over here. We have spawn guest player. Get all this stuff out of the way. And paste actions. So now we should be good. So what's going to happen now when I hit play is we should hopefully see a player get created. So we're going to hit play, because right now we don't have a player. All right, we're connecting to the cloud server. And creating a room. Posting labels. Why didn't we... Okay, the player's instantiated, but where the heck did we put it? It's somewhere. Let's go to the scene view, and let's see where he is. He's way far away. Okay, so let's put a position. 0, 0 should be good. All right, so let's go here. When we instantiate, let's instantiate 0, 0, 0. but his midpoint is at 1.46. So let's instantiate him. Let's instantiate him a little higher. We'll instantiate him at 1.5. So position 0, 1.5. And generally what you'll do is it's always a good idea to instantiate your objects a little higher, because just a little, because then they'll fall to the first collider. And you generally won't even see that. Oh, we didn't even do this one's positions? Oh, sorry, we haven't gotten that far yet. All right, and this is going to be 1.5. Okay, now let's see what happens if we hit play. All right, so here we go. Hopefully we can control this player, and we can. All right, but now to see if our networking is working, we need to build the game. All right, so I'm just going to do a quick build. So I'm going to go up to File, Build Settings. I don't have an open scene. I don't have a scene in here, so we need to add my open scene. Also, if you're playing around in a big test project, make sure other scenes you don't need that you remove them. And we're building to Windows. I don't want development build on because that's going to add extra junk I don't need. I could build and run, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to build, and in my networking test, call this new folder. Just call this, make this my build folder. And one tip, if you can, like if you're making changes to a build it back into the same folder each time, because it'll make your build shorter. It'll make your build shorter. But if you are trying to build into a new folder each time, it's almost like rebuilding it every single time. But if you build it to the same folder and you only made some small changes, it'll go a lot faster. Save the scene, and we'll cut to when it's done building. Okay, how many camera changes can I do? All right, back inside now just to finish this up. We're pretty much done. So we just built it. So I think what I want to do is I want to start by running it in the editor. I don't know why. It doesn't matter which way. All right, there we go. There's a little player. And here I am, moving just fine. Okay. And now if I go to the one that I built, there we go. We got two little pill guys. And now if I move, you'll see, there I am. I'm over on the other side. But you notice something's wrong. It's not getting the rotation for some reason. Okay, so I have an idea of what might be causing that, or at least a way to fix it. So watch this. All right, so think about how we're supposed to be getting the rotation over the network. If you remember, if we go into our player prefab, the tutorial player, oh, he looks cute in this color scheme. If we go to the tutorial player and we go down here, we have our Photon transform view. Notice we have rotation checked. So why isn't it rotating for us? So we might need to come down here to the synchronization. Okay, and change this to reliable delta compressed. I think that's what we need to do. All right, and now if we build this and play this, I think that'll fix our issue, hopefully. Fingers crossed. So build settings, build, go back and build it in the same folder. So it shouldn't take very long. So this time, just for fun, we'll open up the application first. All right, we're in the room. As you can see, everything works fine over here. And let's go in Unity itself. What? It didn't spawn me a player. We did, but where did we spawn him? I don't think we spawned. Yeah, this isn't mine. Notice this one's, it didn't trigger the is mine. So let's go to the event proxy. And let's go to the player proxy here, rather. And pun connection. So spawn, this didn't get caught last time. I have seen this get caught in other projects though. So let's fix this, because it does seem to get caught here on the get room properties a lot. Which means we're gonna have to build again. It's a shame. All right, so let's maximize Playmaker here. All right, so we're in this thing here. So spawn guest player. Wait, you know what? I think we did move that over here. Yeah, so we moved it earlier on the host player state, but we didn't move it on the guest player state. But it's only causing us issues like every now and then. So let's get all those and cut. This is actually the first time I've ever even tried to cut. But it's working. Control X cuts them. And then we'll come in here and we could just do, what did we do over here? Did we do a next frame event? Nope, we just did is room event. All right, so is in room event. And we'll do new event. And we'll call this one, I don't know, in room. All right, so we should be good. So let's build it again. All right, all done. I'm gonna go ahead and play it here in Unity. All right, we're in. There's our character. And we'll open it from the build over here. I don't have the build up, but we can see our player instantiated. All right, so here's our player. And rotation still isn't working. I wonder why it can't get the rotation sync. Do you know why? I just figured out why. It's because the player's not rotating. Do you remember? The player's not rotating. The mesh is rotating. Okay, what we see is rotating, but not the player. So we have the player. We have a photon transform view on the player, but we don't even really need its rotation in this situation. So I could even uncheck that. I'm not sure if that'll save us some network bandwidth or what. But I need to go over here to the mesh, and we need to add a photon view. And then we need to add a photon transform view. And really, we don't even care. I mean, I guess we should sync position and rotation, because I think if we just sync rotation, let's try it. Let's try just syncing rotation and see what happens. Yeah, because I'm wondering if because it should still be moving with its parent. So I don't think we need to sync its position. We just need to sync its rotation. So let's see what happens if we build that. All right, that was a wicked quick build. I did pause the recording, but I was only paused for like 5 seconds. All right, we're going to start with the, let's go ahead and move him out of the way. And we'll come open it in Unity. All right, moment of truth. Yep, that's what it was. Now we see him rotating just fine. Because I forgot that we needed to watch the rotation of the mesh. All right, so there you have it. Up to this point, we've learned to create a debug screen to make it easier to figure out what's going wrong with our Pun2 networking. And we created our connection FSM, which I put on my Playmaker Photon proxy. There might be a reason you don't want to do that, because I feel like I think this one might go scene to scene. I can't really remember. So, I mean, you can do what I did here for small projects, but on separate projects, you might want to make it be its own, like just create an empty game object and make this your pun manager, which is what I usually do, but less game objects for this tutorial. So we went in and we created a pun connection and learned about how to use the global events that we get from Photon. And so on connected to master, we try to join a random room. If that fails, we then create a room. And then once we create a room, we post all our labels and create our player. Or if we successfully join the room, we were we are able to then create our player and post some labels. All right, so next time what we're going to do is we're going to talk about RPCs. And what RPCs are is they're kind of like sending events. So just like these are events, like this is an event in this FSM. These are global events. These one are global transitions. You can send an event to other FSMs. It's kind of what an RPC call is you're sending an event, but it's over the entire network. And I'm going to show you RPCs in a different way. Most times when people show RPCs, they show kind of like shooting bullets. I'm actually going to build a chat room using RPCs. Now, this is not using Photon chat. This is using just Pun2. But we're going to build a chat room using RPC calls. Should be fun and hopefully a really nice way for you to learn how RPCs work. Well, until next time, this has been episode 2 in our Pun2 series. Thanks so much for all the great comments you've been giving. Hey, sweetie. Oh, thank you, sweetie. You want to sit up there? No. You want to put this here?